Something happened in Birmingham on June 6, 2026, that nobody inside that stadium is going to stop talking about for a very long time. There was a moment deep in the third set where the entire crowd went silent. Not polite silence. Not between point silence. The kind of silence where 3,000 people collectively forget to breathe. Where you can hear the grass under someone's shoes. Where time stretches and you feel everything at once. And in the middle of that silence stood a 21-year-old from the Philippines who just 2 years ago wasn't even ranked in the top 150 players in the world. Before we get to that moment, and we will get there, because you need to feel it the way the people in those stands felt it, let's go back to where this day acted, because the beginning of this story is almost as extraordinary as the ending. The player who walked onto that court to face Eala in the Birmingham Classic semifinal was not supposed to be there. She was never supposed to get this far. She wasn't even supposed to be in the main draw. Her name is Rebeka Masarova. She is Swiss. She is ranked 132nd, and she came into this tournament through qualifying, meaning she had to win matches just to earn the right to compete in the tournament itself before the tournament even started. Think about what that means. While the seeded players were resting, preparing, running their pre-tournament routines, Masarova was already competing, already spending energy, and not just surviving, she was dismantling opponents. 5 consecutive wins in Birmingham before this match. 5, including a qualifying stretch where in a single match she served 13 aces. 13 aces in one match. That is not a standard number. That is the kind of number that makes coaches lean forward in their chairs and start rewatching footage at 2:00 in the morning. Weeks before arriving in Birmingham, Masarova had beaten Leila Fernandez in Rome, a player who has stood in Grand Slam finals and is a recognized quantity at the highest level of the sport. So when Eala stepped onto that grass, she was not stepping onto it with a pushover on the other side of the net. She was stepping onto it against someone who had been in battle mode for over a week, running purely on momentum and the quiet, terrifying confidence of a player who has already done the impossible several times over and stopped being surprised by it. Now, here's the fact about Eala that explains everything that happened in this match. She is left-handed. That sounds simple. It is. On a grass court, a left-handed serve is not just a weapon, it is a puzzle that most players spend years trying to solve and never fully crack. The angles that a left-hander can create, especially out wide on the deuce side, are geometrically different from anything a right-handed opponent has trained against thousands of times in practice. The ball kicks away from the body. It skids low on the turf. It arrives at a place the returner's muscle memory is not wired for. And when you have a player with Eala's precision, someone who doesn't just own that serve but understands it like a language, those angles become sentences, paragraphs, entire arguments her opponent has to decode in real time at full speed. Eala entered the 2026 Birmingham Classic ranked world no. 37, the tournament's top seed, and competing in her 15th tournament of the year. Critically, this was her first grass court tournament of the 2026 season. She had not made it through qualifying in Birmingham the previous year. But in her 2026 grass debut, she had won 4 straight matches without dropping a single set until today. Her opening round demolition of Australia's Priscilla Hahn ended 6-0, 6-2 in just 1 hour, during which she dropped only 10 points behind serve and broke Hahn 6 times. Against Russia's Alina Chereva, she won 6-2, 7-5, recovering from 2-5 down in the second set. Against Thailand's Mananchaya Sawankayu in the quarterfinals, the scoreline read 6-3, 6-2, but the opening game of that match alone lasted 15 minutes and stretched to 9 deuces. None of these matches rattled her. Every single one of them ended the same way: Eala in control, efficient, and moving forward. The first set of the semifinal confirmed everything that week has suggested. Eala moved like someone who had already decided how the match was going to go. Masarova was trying, you could see her adjusting, searching, looking for some foothold. But Eala was operating on a different frequency entirely. Every time Masarova tried to take control of a rally, Eala redirected it. Every short ball was punished with a kind of clean, flat strike that gives the opponent no time to recover. And that left-handed serve carved up Masarova's return position from the very first game. The first set went to Eala 6-2 in just under 30 minutes. The commentators were already sketching out their straight sets narrative. Everything pointed to this being comfortable, controlled, and clinical. And then the second set began, and everything changed. The first sign was Masarova's serve. Across her 5 previous matches in Birmingham, this woman had hit 46 aces, an almost offensive number for a qualifier. The kind of figure that belongs in a Wimbledon seeding conversation, not in the qualifier draw of a WTA 125 event. In the second set, those serves started landing big, flat, and unreturnable. Masarova produced 11 aces in the semifinal alone. She stopped defending. She started attacking. And this is where something subtle began to happen to Eala. Not a collapse, nothing as dramatic as that, but a shift, a barely visible tightening. The margins on her ground strokes got a little narrower. The decisions came a fraction. She was still competing, absolutely still in the match, but the mental weight of momentum change was pressing against her game. Masarova, meanwhile, had found something. Whatever doubt she had been carrying, from being the outsider, from being the qualifier, from being the player nobody had expected to reach this stage, it evaporated. She started moving forward, started taking time away from Eala, started making the court feel small and fast and uncomfortable in a way that no opponent had managed to do all week. The second set went to Masarova 6-4. And now there was a deciding third set. Now there was the real match. What Eala did next was not just athletically significant. It was psychologically extraordinary. Consider the weight of that moment. She is the top seed. She has been dominant all. She won the first set with clinical control and then lost the second. Now she has to walk back out onto that court in front of that crowd, carrying all of those expectations and essentially start over. Most players cannot do that. Most players let the ghost of the lost set follow them into the third. They carry it in their shoulders, in their footsteps, in the way they bounce the ball before serving. The loss lives in their body even when the mind is trying to move on. Eala did not do that. At the changeover before the third set, she sat down, she breathed, and then something happened with her expression that was more telling than anything she had done on the court. She reset. The tightening that had crept into her face during the second set simply released like a private decision that nobody in the stands could hear, but everybody could somehow feel. And then she walked back out there. The third set started, and Eala was different. Not cautious, not defensive, dangerously different. She came out serving with the kind of controlled aggression that only arrives when someone has made complete peace with the moment they are in, when they have stopped managing the situation and started attacking it. The left-handed serve came back with teeth. Those wide angles that had tortured Masarova in the first set returned, but this time with even more precision, because Eala now had 2 full sets of information about where Masarova liked to stand, how she moved, and exactly where her backhand broke down under pressure. It was like watching someone solve the same puzzle twice, except the second time they were doing it with the answer key memorized. Masarova did not fold quietly, and she deserves enormous credit for that. She pushed. She served big. She found winners of her own. There were games in that third set that stretched into long, exhausting rallies where the crowd did not know who to root for, because both players were producing tennis that genuinely deserved to win. But the difference emerged in the moments that mattered most. When the pressure peaked, when it was deuce in a critical game, when the crowd was at its loudest, Eala found another gear. Masarova, despite everything she had done to reach this point, could not find that same gear at the same moments. The third set went 6-3 to Eala. But the match was not finished without one final statement. Eala was serving for the match. Masarova, in the last defiant push, forced a deuce. Then another deuce. And the crowd of 3,000, which had been firmly in Eala's corner all afternoon, suddenly went very, very quiet. Not because the tide had shifted, but because they understood exactly what they were watching. They were watching someone refuse to be finished. Masarova was standing at the far end of that court, down in the third set, one game from losing. And she was not going down without making Eala earn every single point. And then Eala looked across the net, bounced the ball, and served. Ace wide on the deuce side, gone before Masarova could read it. Match point. Another serve. Another ace. Match over. The crowd erupted not just because Eala won, but because of how she won it. In the most pressurized moment of the most pressurized match of her week, she served 2 consecutive aces and made it look like she had been rehearsing that exact scenario her entire. When you step back and look at Eala's career arc, that moment stops being surprising and starts being inevitable. 2 years ago, she was ranked 160th in the world. Not fringe top 100. Not almost there. 160th. A player with talent, with promise, with all the ingredients, but one who had not yet learned how to combine them consistently under pressure. Since that ranking, she has climbed without a single major blip or confidence collapse all the way to world no. 37. Along the way, she became the first Filipina to enter the Volta Top 100, the first to defeat a top 5 player, the first to reach a Volta Tour final, and the first to win a Volta Challenger title, capturing the Guadalajara Open in September 2025. She also ended the Philippines' 26-year SEA Games women's singles gold medal drought. This ranking is not the product of a hot 3-week streak or a favorable draw. She has beaten quality opponents week after week on every surface, at every level. Masarova's story in this tournament also deserves more than a footnote. She beat Leylah Fernandez in Rome. She came to Birmingham, went through qualifying, won 5 matches, served 46 aces, and reached the semifinal of a WTA 125 from the qualifier draw. She nearly forced a final against a player who will likely be one of the favorites at Wimbledon. The experience of today now lives inside her game. She will know she belongs at this level. She will know she can compete. That second set, the way she turned the entire match around, the way those serves started landing, the way Eala had no immediate answer that memory will serve her. This is not the story of a player who almost made it. This is the story of a player standing directly on the edge of something significant. Now Eala stands 1 win away from the Birmingham. Her opponent in the final is Czech rising star Nikola Bartonkova, the 5th seed who defeated American Aslan Kruger 6-4, 7-6-7 in her semifinal. The match carries an unusual dynamic. Bartonkova is Eala's doubles partner this week in Birmingham. The two competed together in the doubles draw before losing in the first round to British pair Harriet Dart and Maya Lumsden. They know each other's games in detail. That knowledge cuts both ways. One significant statistic also stands out. Eala's record against Czech players since turning professional in 2020 is 0 wins and 13 losses. That is a number that will matter on Sunday. Eala's full Birmingham run reads 6-0, 6-2, 6-2, 7-5, 6-3, 6-2, 6-2, 4-6, 6-3. The only set she dropped in the entire tournament was today. Every other match was clean, efficient, and dominant. And beyond Birmingham, Wimbledon is now 2 weeks away. Every match Eala plays on this surface builds the specific kind of grass court knowledge that cannot be replicated in practice. Come back to that silence. 3,000 people, not breathing. The biggest moment of the match. And Eala bounced the ball, looked across the net, and served an ace. That moment is not simply a tennis image. It is a 21-year-old from the Philippines on a grass court in England in a semifinal with everything on the line, delivering a 2-ace closing statement in the most pressurized game of her week. That ace did not just win the game. It announced something. Whoever stands on the other side of the net in Sunday's final needs to understand that they are not facing a player riding a hot week. They are facing someone who has already been tested today, who has already felt the match begin to slip, and who reached down and pulled it back through nothing but will, skill, and a left-handed serve that lands in places right-handers can only dream of reaching. The final is coming. And Alex Eala is one win away from the most significant title of her young career.